Welcome to the Self-Belief and Influence podcast, where we talk with people who have great influence in the Metro Detroit business community. We discuss all aspects of their journey, including the moments where they have had to draw deeply on their self-belief and inner drive to achieve their vision. My name is Keith Baldwin, and my co-host is Nathan Hardecki, and our podcast is sponsored by Regal Payments and Push Media. These conversations with our diverse guests will potentially make you re-examine your ideas about people, business, and life in general. Here's a taste of what's coming up today.
Here's the thing with the auto show is, it's not automatically going to be here.
Right.
Just because we're Detroit and we're the Motor City capital of the world, we want to be the mobility capital of the world, we still have to roll up our sleeves and fight for these shows and these events. And to be really direct with you, it was a little bit in jeopardy. Some of the biggest shows across the world have gone by the wayside.
Let's explore and scrutinize together as we unlock the mind of today's guest to provide you with inspiration and tangible takeaways that you can choose to apply in your life. Today's guest is Thad Szott. This is part 2 of our interview with Thad, and here we talk more about his role with the Detroit Auto Show, how he transitions from managing his own dealerships to managing people who run other dealerships, and the whole auto industry itself coming together for a show in Metro Detroit, the largest show in North America. There's a lot of really great insights here from Thad, and I think after listening to this, you'll be really excited to attend this year's Detroit Auto Show. Please like and subscribe to the podcast.
Before we go to the auto show, I just had a couple more questions about sort of the changes you guys are facing, whether it's Tesla pushing this direct-to-customer sales model, or even like Ford is encouraging people to go online and order your cars to do that. And you have sort of this change kind of staring you in the face. You don't have to tell us exactly what your plan is, but how, as an entrepreneur, do you approach that change, and how do you see car dealers in 5, 10, 15 years?
Oh, it's changing constantly. I mean, we're under siege right now with the Teslas of the world, pushing the manufacturers on how they produce vehicles and go to market with vehicles and how they sell vehicles. And certainly direct sales is one of the big obstacles we face as... And
no secret, he caused a big stink when he came into Michigan, right?
He causes a big stink in every state.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I like to do is, look at some of this stuff is going to evolve and you can't fight it. Mm-hmm. You have to adapt to it. Going back to our Google reviews, I mean, you look at some of Tesla's reviews versus our reviews, and we crushed Tesla. I mean, their customer feedback, if you look at a lot of Google reviews, is not very good. Because it's also, everybody focuses so much on the process of buying a car. A lot of people don't focus on what happens after the sale. Mm-hmm. When people need service or they need education on how to work something, that relationship that we build with consumers, to me, makes me less fearful of the direct sales people, manufacturers of the world. I look at states where Tesla still can't sell direct in Michigan. It's against the law. So right now we have less threat than some other states. Some other states have approved them to sell direct. And, I watched those states, and I know dealers that own different dealers in those states, and they're both still being successul, right? When I say both, I mean the Teslas of the world are having success in those states that they can sell directly on, but so is, Johnny's, corner Chrysler dealership that has to compete against them. They're still being successful too. So you have to find your way, and you have to understand those threats. You have to up your game, if you will, with customer service, and you have to make it easier for people to buy cars, because that's really the big perceived advantage Tesla has. It's an easy process, right? You don't have to come into a dealership and grind out a negotiation and go through all that stress. And those are things that we've recognized, and we have done a lot of things within our process to expedite the process, make it easier, do a lot of the things online. A lot of times we're selling cars to people who don't come in the showroom. Everything's done over the phone or by text or by email. The whole thing is put together that way, and then we actually deliver the car to their house. So they don't even step foot in the dealership. That was unheard of 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, but now I would say it's a good 20% of our business and growing. And we've embraced that. We've invested in that. We have a delivery truck that we have all branded up that we deliver to your house. And when I say we deliver to your house, we just delivered a car to Key Largo. I mean, that's what we do. Put it on a flatbed, go down there, do the paperwork, and come back. And so those are things that, where one door closed and you're getting nervous that people are selling direct, you kind of up your game, and now you're selling cars outside of the state because of your service. So, one thing may hinder you, but it may create some opportunities for you to think, a little deeper about your business and how you can grow in different areas.
Yeah, I think it's great because I think for consumers, it's so easy to say, oh yeah, why can't we buy direct? But I think the reality that a lot of people miss is that, as these businesses consolidate, we miss some of that community aspect and the culture that you're describing. Like, we're talking about people, and we're talking about how smaller businesses can connect to communities. And you talked a little bit earlier about fundraising and supporting Ronald McDonald House. Those are things that the Teslas of the world can't do. And I mean, I know that doesn't necessarily influence whether someone's going to buy a car. I mean, maybe for some it will, but I think there's value there that people don't always appreciate. Can you want to talk a little bit about the different fundraising efforts that you guys do through Szott?
When people are looking to do fundraising, whether that's for a school, whether that's for, the soccer team, whether that's for maybe a family that had a tragedy happen in their community or their house caught on fire. I mean, the list goes on and why people need fundraising. One of the first doors they go knock on is the local car dealer, because they know the local car dealer is involved with their community. And I think, like you said, dealers get a bad rap a lot of times. When you actually look at what they do in their communities, man, it's incredible. And I'm proud to say we're one of those dealers. We've been involved really heavily with the Ronald McDonald House of Detroit, Keith, as you know, for years. But we do so much more than just that. That's just that charity. We are really involved with our local school district, in particular the Huron Valley School District. And, it's funny because the school district has so many facets of fundraising. You got the band, and you got the sports teams, and you got arts and academics, and all these people are looking to fundraise outside of what they get from a budget from a school district. And, we were getting hit at so many different ways from so many different people. And, you have so many customers that buy cars from you, and now their kid's in 5th grade, and this kid's in 10th grade, and this other family has someone in the band. And I don't want to say that they feel entitled because they do business with you, but they feel entitled because they do business with you. And so
I bought one car, so now we need you to do this.
Yes, we actually sat down with the superintendent at our school district and said, look, is there something that makes sense for us to partner up on, where we can set up a fund where you guys know how to best spend this money, and we can direct everybody that is inquiring from us from the school district level to tap into that fund. And it has grown over the last, 20 years. It started with doing a car display at one of the biggest football games. It was actually a homecoming game, and the two high schools in our community were playing against each other on homecoming, and we put up like a 30 vehicle display and did all this crazy stuff. That's really what sparked this conversation. But to make a long story short, we ended up putting that together, and we give them $30,000 a year, the school district. And then they divvied up between the arts departments and the sports departments. And then they have kind of like a general fund too, that they do their best to help support things for the school. But that's just one example of things that we do in our backyard, in our community, that a Tesla does not do, or something that is a direct sales that does not do. And I hear it all the time. The reason I'm buying a car from you is because all that things you do in the community. So it is very impactful to your question or your statement about, do people really buy cars because of that? Absolutely. I hear it every day, but it doesn't, for the people who are just starting a new company that may be listening, that does not happen overnight. Like, you can't just start a business and then run over to the school district and give them $1,000 and put on social media that you donated $1,000 to the school district and expect everybody from the school to come do business with you. It does not work like that. Right. You have to be in there year in and year out, build that relationship with the community over time, and eventually you're going to have a dividend on that relationship. So, make sure your listeners that are starting jobs understand that it's a little bit of a longer term process, but a very, very valuable tool. And I think it feels great, right? When you're giving back to the community, certainly it's a benefit for us to get business because of that, but it's also, you know, just good vibes and good karma, giving back to society and making the world a little bit better. So we do a lot of that around our town.
Yeah, one of our other podcast episodes, we spoke with Mamba Hamasi, who owns a restaurant in Detroit, and he, when he came to America, was helped a lot by Freedom House, and he gives back there. And I didn't know a lot about Freedom House before I met Mamba, and before I got to know you, I didn't know a lot about Ronald McDonald House. I knew of it. I knew it was a charity of McDonald's, but you asked me what they did, I didn't really know. Right. So if you want to spend a couple of minutes telling us about Ronald McDonald House and what they do, that'd be great for people to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think the skewed perception of these Ronald McDonald Houses across the country, and I think there's somewhere around, I don't know, around 400 of them globally now, is that they're funded by McDonald's, because that ties there, the Ronald McDonald House of Detroit, right? They think that the Ronald McDonald House gets all of their funding through McDonald's. And the matter of the fact is they get about 10% funding.
Oh, wow, that little?
Yeah. And the other 90% of these houses is all fundraising. And, you know, I think our house here, you know, it's a 7-figure budget a year to run a house like that. So you talk about the numbers, it doesn't take long to figure out they got to raise a lot of money every year. But what they do is, you know, they associate themselves with children's hospitals across the world. And they do their part of building a place they call a home away from home for the families of people who have a sick child in a children's hospital. So just about every major or even minor children's hospital across really the world, you'll find a Ronald McDonald House really, really close to accommodate those families. Because, you know, when you have a kid that's sick, a lot of these are unexpected illnesses, and they're not planned, and all of a sudden your world is tipped upside down. You take your kid into the hospital, they may get transferred to a children's hospital because it's a little more serious. And then a lot of times you find out that the kid's going to be in there for, you know, weeks, months. And, you know, where are you going to stay? You don't want to leave your kid. So now you're scrambling with all the stress about what's going on with your kid.
Right.
And you don't want to leave them. And so where are you going to stay? Because a lot of times these hospitals aren't necessarily right, you know, 15 minutes down the street. When you're talking about a specialty children's hospital, a lot of times they're an hour, 2 hours, or states away. And so the home away from home that these Ronald McDonald Houses do is set up these families where they don't have to worry about all the day-to-day activities of, you know, a bedroom, a shower, a meal. It's just there ready for you. You know, you don't have to think about grocery shopping and what are we going to have for dinner. You know, I'm not worried about showering when my kid's, you know, going through this insane illness, but you need to, and you got to get rest, and you got to be there for your kid too, because I think that's part of the healing process. And that's one of the intangibles that these Ronald McDonald Houses offer, is that, you know, to keep these families together through a tragedy like an illness of a child, is one of the healing solutions, and I think has a major impact on these kids rebounding faster, and sometimes rebounding at all is having mom or dad next to them. And these houses allow that. So it's special that we have that charity in our backyard, and it was a big impact on our life.
Speaking of charity, we can shift to the auto show. The auto show does their charity event every year. Mm-hmm. How big a part of that is for the kickoff of the auto show? How big of an event is that for local charities?
Oh, it's huge. I think we've raised somewhere over $100 million for local charities in Detroit, and they're all focused on children's charities as well. And so, you know, you look at the success of the auto show over the years, and particularly, I would say, you know, we've been in a lot of challenging times with the show over the last, you know, 4 or 5 years. But prior to that, there was a 25-year run there where that thing was on, I don't want to say autopilot, but wildly successful, bigger than we ever thought it would get. Now, you understand the reason I'm tied with the Detroit Auto Show is because the Detroit Auto Dealers Association owns that show. So the car show, the Detroit Auto Show, is actually owned by the Detroit dealers. And we have an executive board that we put together that runs the show every year, and it's kind of a 5-year commitment. And, you know, you kind of work the roles and eventually become chairman of the show. But the, you know, charity preview is a massive part of the show, and that's every Friday. The first Friday of when the show opens up is the Black Tie Charity Preview Night. And, you know, like I said, right now that we've been struggling a little bit more with auto shows globally over the last 4 years. I believe last year we raised close to $3 million that night. That is an insane amount of number for one night for a charity event. But you compare that to the times in the past, we were getting up there around $5, $6, and $7 million for one night. And so a lot of times, we get the media kind of spinning it negatively, like, guys, you guys used to raise all $6 million bucks that night, and last year you only raised $3 million. Only raised $3 million. You look at events across the nation that raise that kind of money, and you are an elite fundraising event. Yeah. I mean, elite. It's hard to raise $100,000 in one night, let alone when you start talking about millions. So we're super proud of that event. People love it. It's an iconic event in Detroit, in Metro Detroit, and really in Michigan. You go up to Lansing and meet with some of our leadership in Lansing and get an opportunity to maybe sit down with some senators or some people that are in the House of Representatives. If you get in any of their offices, a lot of them have the pictures of their spouse and them at charity preview with their, black tie on and fancy gown. I mean, it has a very huge impact in our area, and we're super proud of it, and we're looking forward to it again this year, September 16th. It's a Friday. That's when the charity preview is this year. So get on out there and buy those tickets and support that event. It's a great cause.
Yeah, and to talk about the auto show, I know there's a number of things going on. You've talked about EVs being highly focused. I believe there's a test drive track out back. What would you say is the big attraction this year? I mean, me personally, I like cars, but I'm not a car guy. But I like going to the auto show. What the medium interested car person? Why should they come to the car show this year?
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, but I'll do my best to give you cliff notes.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah. So, look at our heart and soul of this area is the car business, right? Whether you're a supplier or your Uncle Joe worked at Ford or the list goes on and on. Somehow, some way, every person in Detroit, Metro Detroit, really in Michigan, is somehow tied to our industry. We know that it kind of is our foundation in the state. So first of all, you're really supporting your own community and all the small businesses within the community. Because if we didn't have that industry, a lot of these small businesses wouldn't be able to do what they do. So we're really lucky to have this industry in our backyard. But we talked earlier about the Teslas of the world and how the EVs are taking over. I mean, it is a changing game out there when it comes to transportation. There's going to be different ways to buy vehicles. Right now we have buying and leasing and paying cash, but there's going to be some new things coming in. We have subscriptions and things knocking on the door, which is kind of a short-term lease where you get to switch vehicles out. Meaning, if you want a Mustang for the summer and a truck for the winter, you're going to be able to do that with a subscription. So there's just so many dynamics of our industry that are changing, and to have this huge industry in our backyard, it's just exciting. I mean, this is an iconic event globally. I mean, you go across the world and talk about the car industry, and you bring up the Detroit Auto Show. Anybody that's in the industry in Europe or wherever you're going knows the Detroit Auto Show. They recognize that event. I mean, it is a global event. So, and it's right here in our backyard. So, if you're in our town, you're really lucky to have the opportunity to go to the show, first of all. And we have such an incredible city of Detroit, right? I mean, it's an iconic city with great history, and the Huntington Place is what it's called now. Used to be Cobo, so a lot of those people that may be older, I'm referencing Cobo Hall, and it's changed names a few times. So Huntington Place is an incredible venue, incredible convention center. They've poured tons of money in, and it's beautiful. And I don't know if you've been downtown and looked at the riverfront in particular, right by Huntington Place, but it is incredible. The money they poured into that and the development they've done. So if you haven't been downtown, the auto show is also a great reason just to go check out what's going on downtown. It is impressive, man. I mean, I think we just won #1 river walk in the country in Detroit. That's crazy.
You talked a little bit about, so you're running this group. So the dealership group owns the auto show. Mm-hmm. So you're managing peers essentially. What was that like? I would imagine that there wasn't a consensus immediately inviting the direct sales people to the EV thing that you were describing just a second ago. So how did you manage your peer group I'm assuming some were like, no, don't invite those guys. Why are we inviting,
Correct.
the enemy into our
100% correct. And on your question, and we're still having those conversations. But here's the thing with the auto show is, it's not automatically going to be here.
Right.
Just because we're Detroit and we're the Motor City capital of the world, we want to be the mobility capital of the world. We still have to roll up our sleeves and fight for these shows and these events. And to be really direct with you, it was a little bit in jeopardy. Some of the biggest shows across the world have gone by the wayside, or have been sold and moved. And so we recognize that. I mean, these manufacturers, to be completely honest, are revealing a lot of these vehicles online now. It's a bigger bang for the buck, way better return on investment, way more eyeballs than an auto show can do for them. And that was kind of our bread and butter, if you will, to have an auto show, was to attract a lot of reveals. In fact, Detroit was iconic for it. I mean, at one time we had over 50 reveals in a show. I think last year we had, a few. Mm-hmm. And so it's changed a lot. And in order to have our show, we knew we had to get out of the box, evolve with where society's going, and have those hard conversations with, even though these are somewhat our enemies who are doing direct sales, they're part of the industry. They're driving direction of where this industry is going. My good friend from high school is a big-time executive for Subaru out in San Francisco, and sent me a market share report from San Francisco for the month of May 2023. So for us, I don't know what date we're going to be broadcasting this podcast. July. Okay. So a couple months ago, May of 2023, Tesla's market share in the San Francisco area was 25%. I mean, to give you an idea, I think Toyota forecast they are striving to get to just over a 2% market share in Detroit.
Wow.
To give you an idea of numbers, right? And they got 25% and leading the market share in San Francisco. So, I mean, they're kind of moving the direction of where this industry is going. And again, you can either fight that, or you have to embrace it and find a way to make it work for you. We've recognized, I think, as a committee that this industry is moving quickly, and people want to see that product. And for our show to be successful with media and attendance, and the list goes on, and to survive, we're going to have some of these manufacturers there. So this is really the first year we've opened a door for that possibility.
Now, going from, obviously we've talked a lot about the culture at your Szott dealerships. Now you're running the Detroit Auto Show. How are you transferring a new culture over there? And it's not necessarily your employees. You're dealing with a board, then you're dealing with staffing companies who have temporary staff at the event. What are you hoping to permeate down in terms of culture to kind of put your stamp on it?
I bring it with everything I have. That same mindset I have for our organization, I bring right over to our committee. A lot of positive energy, and we have so many negative things coming at us from an auto show. A lot of difficult, complex, intense conversations with OEMs, talking directly and meeting directly with leadership in the city of Detroit and the state of Lansing, where, we have to collaborate. And a lot of people have a lot of grand different ideas, and these things get pretty intense. And to bring that, I think that positive energy, the glass is half full type attitude with the culture that we have established in our group it's part of life to me. So whether I'm talking to my kids, or I'm in my house, or I'm at the gas station talking to someone inside the gas station, I bring that with me every single day. And then the Detroit Auto Show is just another facet of that. And, I think I get recognized for it. I hear it from my board members, constantly that, it's refreshing to have somebody on the board that has that positive energy, because we need it. Like they embrace it, because like I said, there's so many challenges out there. To have someone that screams optimism and hope and out of the box thinking, I think, is something that's needed everywhere. And certainly, I've had incredible mentors while I've been on this board. It's a 5-6 year commitment where they kind of teach you the roles, and eventually you become chairman of the show. And you couldn't do that without the people who have gone, before you. And right now, because we are in such challenging times and ideas, we're leaning on chairmen from 15 and 20 years ago for their knowledge. So yeah, we have a smaller committee, but we have an incredible mentorship as part of that culture. I'm just honored and proud to be part of it. And I do what I can to bring that energy and that excitement and that fun and that positivity to the group.
All right, final few questions for you. I mean, this is we've titled this the Self-Belief and Influence podcast, and you are at a great position of influence in the car industry. What were some moments in your journey where you really had to tap into those resources of self-belief, where maybe things didn't seem so positive where you are now?
Well, I mean, one of the times is right now. I mean, the last few years have been really hard in our industry. Supply chains have been a major issue. Driving between our dealerships and seeing, we actually did a lot of blacktop recently because, over the last couple of years, we didn't have inventory. And so, pulling into those lots and seeing, where we used to have hundreds and hundreds of cars, maybe 2 or 3 sometimes, or 0 at our Toyota dealership in stock is a huge mental game. How are you pumping your staff up when you have nothing to sell? That's a challenge. And so what we had to tap into was, we can sell what's coming in as well. And so we started marketing all those vehicles that were coming in and got very, very good, way better than we have ever been at selling inbound vehicles and getting a hold of customers in particular that have a lease and getting them to order a vehicle before they need their next vehicle and having that conversation early. And so again, with crisis creates opportunity, right? We are way better today at recognizing, reaching out to consumers way ahead of time as far as planning purposes go, and getting them to order a vehicle, in particular, like I said, for our lease customers, where they would usually call us, hey man, my lease is up in a month. We got to make a move here. So what's the deal of the day? And we would tap into our current inventory and we would, put a deal together. But those luxuries got a lot skinnier over the last couple of years. So we found ways to, again, evolve, adapt, be successful. And actually the customers love it, man, because they, now they know exactly the car they're getting with all the options they want, and they don't have to, adapt to what we have in inventory. And, they wanted black and they had to settle for white, and et cetera. They're getting exactly what they want. There's still a huge part of the population that still doesn't, even though we tee them up, they're just too busy in life and going too fast to be messing with a car right now. It's not even on their mindset. Their lease isn't up for a year. Why are you calling me type situation? We're in a much better position today with inventory than we have been over the last 3 years. So luckily we're getting back to kind of I don't want to say a normal, but a manageable inventory levels. But that has been huge. So, to go through crises like that we're currently going through and still have the mindset. And the same really happen in the parts department. People come in for a repair, they need a car back now.
Yeah.
Like they don't have time to be without a car. We recognize that, but when we can't get the part because the supply chains aren't delivering them, now what? Right? The car's undrivable.
You got the golf cart to lend them.
Yeah. We can't fix the car because we don't have the part. And we're worried about reviews. We're worried about customers being happy. Do whatever it takes type situations. Again, we'll do whatever we can within reason. And a lot of times we pull a part off somebody's demo and fix the car. Or, our rental fleet went up massive. I mean, we used to have like 10 rentals. I mean, we have hundreds of rentals now to adapt to that situation. That's getting better as well. But, you got to find a way, man. You got to find a way. We're going to have more obstacles in the future. And you just got to figure it out. And it's not easy all the time, but the mindset has to be there. I mean, the woe is me and this is impossible doesn't get it done if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner. You're going to get railroaded. So for those entrepreneurs that think it's all gravy train, there's a lot of things you're going to have to do that maybe are uncomfortable. And you have to find ways around those obstacles. And you learn and you grow and you find new opportunities. Our rental fleet now is becoming profitable. Before we used to lose money on that. So through that, hundreds of rentals that we now have, it's turned into a profit center for us. And it's more convenient for the customer because they actually have a car to drive. So, that's just one example.
Well, yeah, I've definitely enjoyed hearing the culture you've built and everything to get you to the point where you are. My last question really would be for any young people listening. I know when I just finished my degree and I didn't really know what I was going to do in my 20s, and all the jobs I ended up having to get me to the point now are definitely fantastic for building my experience. Why should someone in their young 20s, not quite sure what their future career holds, why should they consider going into car sales, going into something in the car industry? What does the future hold? And if you were yourself, I know your son's in his early 20s. Why is it an exciting time to get in?
Oh, it's such a great industry, and there's just tremendous opportunity within our industry. You know, a lot of people think it's just, you know, you look at new car sales because that gets a lot of the attention, but there's so many other facets of our business. You know, we have a finance department. We have an office that has to manage all this paper flow. You know, you think about paper flow in a dealership, nobody has any idea about the paper flow. With warranty paperwork and repair orders and collision repair orders and parts orders that are coming in and out every day. A car deal alone, the paperwork that has to get processed through the office is incredible. So from an accounting standpoint, that's a huge opportunity. You know, we have service advisors in a service department that can grow in to become service managers. We have technicians that can come in at 20 years old and start changing oil, and within 5 years could be making solid six figures if they grow their education and listen to our apprentices that are teaching them how to get to the next level. A huge opportunity with technicians, and not only in the service but also in collision repair. You know, everybody forgets about the collision shop, and that is a segment that is starving for people to jump into that industry. And, you know, there's not a ton of youth going that way. And what a huge opportunity. I mean, you want to make six figures quickly. It's a huge opportunity to learn and grow as a technician in the collision world. Used cars, you know, you master how to sell a car, and there's just so many leadership positions when it comes to, you know, a car dealership as far as sales managers goes, finance managers goes. You got used car and new car managers. But, you know, a lot of people have become car dealers. You know, that you look at and interview a lot of car dealers around town. They started off by selling cars,
right?
And now they own, you know, multiple rooftops. So a lot of them without even a college degree. But I guess the one tip I would give to whether you're going into our business or not, into the car industry or not, whatever industry or job you choose, I can tell you based on my, you know, 30-some years of experience of being out there in the, what I call, you know, where the rubber meets the road in retail. You know, a person that has an incredible amount of energy and excitement and positivity, it just is so valuable, no matter what job position you're in. Your opportunities will be open to you much faster and much more frequently than somebody that's maybe even more talented than you, if you can outdo them with energy and attitude and being positive. So that's my biggest tip to anybody. I can't tell you how many people that have been offered promotions within our group that maybe weren't the most talented, but had that excitement and energy and positive outlook, because now they're in a leadership role and now they're setting the tone for their group. And, you know, you have Negative Nancy or Grumpy Greg there running the show, and that just filters to their team. And you know, Grumpy Greg may be more talented, but if he's...
Apologies to all Gregs out there.
I'm sorry, Greg.
And Nancy's.
Yeah, and Nancy's. It's just such a huge impact, and I've recognized that over the years, how valuable that is. So, you know, if you have opportunities to get a college education, great. If you have an opportunity to get great grades because you got a, you know, you're gifted with a good mind, that's awesome. If you weren't, you know, lean on that other strength. But even if you were given those gifts, man, you got to tap into that education and getting your mind right. And that's a whole nother self-education process. So it's well worth the investment.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Thad.
Keith.
Nate, let's ruminate. Thad's, well, a great guy. Such positive energy. Did that come across to you?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Energy is infectious. I mean, the guy is just positive, positive, positive.
Yeah, and as I know, I mean, it's one thing to say you have a culture, but every person in these dealerships lives it. I mean, I got to know him on a friendship level, on a professional level, from working, in his dealership with his merchant processing, and everyone I meet there is fantastic, and every car I've bought there has been a good experience, and it's exciting to have someone like Thad leading the Detroit International Auto Show, and I'm really excited for it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I realized I should be more observant as we're taking him out of the space and he's leaving the interview. I noticed his logo. I purchased the car from him. And I would have to agree with everything he said about what he does and the culture he creates. And just echoing exactly what you just mentioned. It's really interesting to see somebody sort of create this group of people. He said he had 300 employees, and to have such great positive experience, number one, most 5-star reviews. It's got to be a testament to his ability to manage people.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like was probably one of the last things he was talking about is if you are starting a career, looking for experience, to start in the car industry, it is an exciting time. I mean, cars are never something that I thought of, but like he says, I know people who are more of an engineering type brain who are doing some college courses in diesel or just engines that you can make. That's such an understocked industry right now with personnel. You can make 6 figures pretty quickly in your 20s, which is not bad at all.
No, I'm considering a career change as we speak.
This may be the last episode. You'll see Nathan changing your oil pretty soon, working his way up.
Yeah, it was, I don't know if it'll come through audibly, but visually you could tell that he was sort of gritting his teeth at this idea when I had asked about what was it like inviting these direct to customer sales EVs into the auto show. I mean, you could tell it's just something that he's fighting against, yet at the same time he understands it's sort of this necessary evil and you can't fight it forever. And if you do try to fight it forever, you're going to lose because it's not up to him. It's up to the consumer, and the consumers are buying into it. So he's got to embrace it. And I feel like the way he's approaching it, he's going to succeed. It just seems like he's got that attitude and he's got the willingness to not fight it, because I think fight is the wrong way to say it, but he's grabbing it and he's taking it and he's making it something of his own. Yeah,
I don't know if gritting the teeth is necessarily given the right visual, in that he's not anti it, but he's just very matter of fact. It's where people would waste time trying to fight, not necessarily even a losing battle, but trying to not understand that the future changes, right? Everything changes and you have to adapt or die. And he's an early adapter in a number of things in what he does. One thing with Thad, and Thad mentioned it, is his dad was in the business and his dad had a great mentor in Roger Penske, and obviously Thad was very fortunate in having a great mentor in his dad. But I know the popular TV show Succession, people talk about succeeding and carrying on a family legacy, but I think at times, and I know he nodded to it, you can definitely be harder on someone than someone from the inside and someone from the outside, because you really have to want to make them prove their worth. And I think Thad definitely felt that growing up and felt the responsibility to pave his own way, to earn his own way, and he started from the bottom himself. I always like those stories and the determination it shows.
Yeah, even he had mentioned working for someone else, working for his dad, then going off to college and then selling cars for someone else. I'm sure that had to have been a massive change and a wealth of experience to see, okay, this is how I've learned, then this is how someone else does it. Because I'm sure those car dealers, everyone does that differently. And there's immense value there.
Yeah, all experiences to add tools to his toolkit.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Keith.
Yeah, and one other thing as well with that, I know we talk often about the qualities people show. With that, it's infectiousness, excitement, but also a real humility. He's never been a showy guy. He's just been such a warm person, and I think that translates to his people, being humble, a humble leader, as it were.
Excellent.
All right, we didn't add
Thanks,
to
Keith.
That much.
I'll try to close this one again. Thanks, Keith.
Yeah. Thanks, Nate. We can always redo these end ones as well.